We are going to talk about what is called as bhava today. Okay, bhava means you say na it is in bhava, and the loosest translation, if such a word exists, is imagination. So when you say bhavam, we say imagination, isn't it? Uh, this is the way he looks at stuff. So bhavam na, we say imagination. Unfortunately, we use the word imagination to denote something which is not true, right? Generally, imagination is unreal. Na? You use the word imaginary numbers when it is not real. Unreal numbers are called imaginary numbers, like square root of -1. And so you have a real number, which is 5, and you have an imaginary number, which they denote by I. And then 5 plus I becomes a complex equation. You see, when real and imaginary coexist, it becomes very complex. In life also, na? When you have people who are imagining stuff, and there are people who see only things which are real. When these two collide, it becomes very complex. But now the question is, what is bhavam? Not the bhava bhakti's bhavam, that we already have. You see, bhava bhakti's bhava is a little particle of prema. But you say, na, sakhya bhava, you say motherly bhava, vaatsalya bhava, friendship bhava, and we use the word bhava, isn't it? And they call it as mood, or they call it as all these things. And now I want you to explore what this bhava really means. Because some people saw Krishna as their child, and they called it bhava. I have the bhava of seeing Krishna as a child. Some people saw Krishna as their protector, as their master. So their bhava is, called that way, daasya bhava. And there are some people who saw Krishna as a friend, and it's called bhava. So each of them are imagining a relationship with Krishna, to put it very loosely. Now I'm going to tell you a story, which you all know mostly. And I want you to explore bhava with this story, and let's see if we all come to the approximately the same conclusion. This is a story which comes in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. It is about a demon called Aghasura. And Aghasura, obviously, most of you know, he came in form of a mountain snake, right? And now, remember, I've asked you about a question about how do we understand bhava. And I use this story in Bhagavatam to give me a very interesting insight into what bhava is, as blessed by our Swamiji when he told the story. So their kids are playing in Vrindavanam. Suddenly, a huge mountain snake appears. And this guy is Aghasura. He is a brother of Bakasura and Putana, and they are a family of demons, I guess. And this chap suddenly comes like a huge mountain. Okay. And then he opens his mouth wide. The fangs are reaching out, and his tongue is forked out. The forked tongue of this snake is now hanging out, and two brilliant eyes there. It is gasping and giving out hot putrid air. Obviously the snake, especially being a demon snake, didn't have any sattvic food, so the hot air which came from its belly was also not very pleasant to smell. And with that happening, our Gopas, our friends of Bhagavan Sri Krishna, are playing hide and seek. And it was Krishna's turn to close his eyes, and all these little kids thought we should find a new place to hide. And one of the kids looked at this huge mountain snake, and he told all the other kids, look here, there is a great mountain looking like a snake. He called it Snake Mountain. The other chap said, it looks like a mountain snake. You see, the law of commutation doesn't work here. Mountain snake is not same as Snake Mountain. But then this boy said, forget it. It's a lovely it's a mountain snake or a snake mountain. This is a mountain actually, which looks like a snake. And then the little boy says, look at this wonderful red rock, which is leading us into the cave. Does this not look like the forked tongue of a snake? And the boy says, yes, it looks like that. Look at the 2 billion, white rocks in the center, very sharp upward. Does it not look like fangs of a snake? And people are all nodding and lauding. And they were all going inside. And then hot air came from inside this cave. And one of them said, it looks like a breath of a snake, this air coming from the cave. And one of them said, don't worry, if it's a snake, my mother told me if you clap your hands, all the snakes will run away. And they entered into the very snake, and then they started clapping their hands and went inside. And now, when they were going inside, one boy had a little suspicion, what if it is really a snake? The other chap immediately said, why do you worry? Now that we have Bhagavan Sri Krishna as a protector, would he allow us to perish? And immediately Bhagavan opened his eyes, you see. So this gave wonderful 2 lessons here. As long as you are hiding or you want to hide what we did or what we think from a Mahatma or Krishna by extension, they would completely close their eyes on us. If we want to hide our dark areas, if we want to hide stuff from our Guru, they would not look at it. You see, just like how Krishna did not want to see where they were walking inside because they were playing hide and seek. Na? So the Gopas were actually hoping that Krishna would not find them hiding inside a snake. So I'm just trying to, glean some stuff from that story. Huh? Don't ask too many questions, but this is for gleaning. So as long as the Gopas didn't want Krishna to, know that they are in this mountain snake, Krishna shut his eyes and he played along. The moment a boy said, if it's really a snake, why do you worry? Krishna sees all this and he will protect us. Immediately, Krishna opened his eyes and saw what was happening. And it is said, our Shukamuni said poetically, that Krishna himself was baffled. How come my own wonderful children are running inside a mouth of a snake called Aghasura? Agha means sin. And he thought, such is the greatness of the Maya, etc. And he decided, since they counted on my protection, he protected them. All right. So now, coming back to our question about bhaava, I want you to think about the story where the Gopas went inside a mountain snake, thinking that it is a snake mountain, imagining it to be a mountain snake. Do you see this whole beautiful 3 dimensions of the story? Our Swamiji very beautifully brought this out in one of his narratives. You see this whole picture, it is so beautiful. That which exists is a mountain snake, right? And they were convinced that it is a snake mountain. And while they were entering the snake mountain, they were actually imagining it to be a mountain snake. Now, if you ask me a question, were the Gopas actually seeing Aghasura as a mountain snake? They didn't. They actually saw it as a snake mountain. What were they imagining? They were imagining a snake mountain to be a mountain snake, which actually is the fact. And this is how bhava can be understood when you start applying it to Bhagavan, Guru, etc. Now I want you to think about it. Actually, when you use the word imagination as bhavam, imagination being something to do with our thought process or emotions or perspective, as most of you got it in your answers, is correct. But it is an imagination, but it's not imaginary. You see, I hope you see the difference here. That's exactly what we gleaned from this Aghasura story. How Shukamuni is leading us there. I would request each of you to take a little while, go to the translation and read the story. It should come around 13th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto. Shukamuni is expanding on this very intriguing concept, and which I thought with Yuva Bhagavatam I can discuss. Because, be with me. Just take a deep breath and completely give your attention to me for the next 3 minutes, and then we'll wrap up. Now, the Gopas have gone to Vrindavan. I'm now telling in the perspective of Gopas. Okay, they see a mountain, and they imagine the mountain to be a snake, and it turns out that it was a snake, right? So their bhava of seeing a mountain as a snake turned out to be truth. So can I use a small paradox here? Bhava for me, when you say, this is how we look at stuff, especially when it comes to divine stuff, is imagining the real, because the real is not very apparent to me right now. The real is not very visible to me right now. I am seeing something else apart from reality. So bhava is a window through which I imagine the real so that I can experience it later. Does it make sense now? We have come to an age where we need to really boil our brains to get some stuff in. That's the interesting part of what we are trying to discuss. So bhava is our Mahatmas helping us to imagine something, because we don't see Krishna everywhere. Bhava says Krishna is everywhere. So I tell myself as a perspective, Krishna is watching everything. My Guru is watching everything. But do you see Krishna watching everything? You don't. But is it the truth that Krishna is watching everything? It is. And so bhava means I imagine the truth that Krishna is watching me all the time, even though I don't see the truth. You see? So let me come back to my own paradoxical way of defining bhava. It is imagining the truth, because I don't see the truth. All I see is just this world. I don't see Bhagavan, but I want to see Bhagavan. How do I see Bhagavan? It's very simple. I imagine the real. I imagine that Krishna loves me. I imagine that Krishna is providing for me. I imagine that Krishna is watching me every time. When actual fact is, it is Krishna who provides, it's Krishna who is seeing everything, it is Krishna who is blessing. But I don't see the truth. So I imagine the truth. How do I imagine the truth? People who have seen the truth help me to imagine the truth so that one day I can also see the truth. That's what is bhava. So Krishna is a friend to everybody. Krishna can also be a son or a child to anybody. Krishna can also be a master to everybody. Krishna can also be a lover of everybody. And Krishna can also be the indweller of everybody's heart. You see, Krishna is all this. All of that is truth. But I don't know it. Na? So my guru teaches me, imagine that Krishna is watching you all the time. You can't hide from Krishna. When the real truth, which our guru has seen is, Krishna is present everywhere. Krishna knows everything. How and all, I don't know, because my limited intellect. So I am imagining the truth so that one day I become mature enough to see the truth. That's what is called bhava. For example, when I am offering milk during, say, Prabodhanam or Dolotsavam, I am offering milk. And when you offer milk to a picture which is blessed by our Swamiji or to the picture of Thakurji, actually Bhagavan is accepting the milk, you see. But we don't see it. But I can imagine it. I am imagining in my heart when I'm offering milk to our Thakurji and Madhuri Sakhi that Krishna is taking the milk from my hand and he's drinking it. Now this imagination is not imaginary. I am imagining the reality that when I offer milk with Shraddha, with faith, actually Krishna takes that milk. And so bhava is actually imagining the truth. And so if I want to imagine the truth, it's called sadbhava. My guru helps me in the sadbhava. How does my guru help me in the sadbhava? By actually giving me kirtans, by actually giving me lectures, where he says, when you take that pot of milk to Bhagavan Sri Krishna, you say, na, Kshiram Svikuru Kshirabdi Shayana. I'm actually saying, Krishna, please accept my milk. So for me to talk to Krishna in that song, I have to imagine Krishna before me. When actually Krishna is before me, I don't see it, so I imagine it. And then when I offer it, I say, I've added sugar to this, shakkara mishritam, and you please accept it. And mentally, I imagine Krishna is drinking it. When actually, Krishna is drinking the milk. Not physically, obviously. Palasara bhakshitam. He just takes the essence of it. But then the beauty is, bhava means I imagine the truth as guided by my guru in form of kirtan, in form of lectures, or in form of the way to contemplate. And I do that so that one day I get to the state of prema. Prema means I get to the state where I start actually loving it and seeing that divinity, interact with me. How it happens is very difficult for us to explain it intellectually. It is experiential, but it happens. So bhava means, think about it, imagining the truth, because I don't see it now. Let me add a little more condition to it. Imagining the truth as guided by my guru so that I can see it one day in future. That's what is called bhava. So bhava cannot be freewheeling. Bhava cannot be freelance like I imagine, etc. It has to be guided. And the guidance is what Bhagavatam gives us. You can imagine yourself to be Yashoda if your guru permits you to be. And then when you imagine yourself to be Yashoda, Krishna is willing to be a child to you. And Krishna is a child to you if you look at him that way. When I start imagining it, over time, I realize it. It was the truth from the time set go, you see. And that's what is called the experience of devotion. Yes, it is very heavy. Yes, it is not very simple for us to comprehend. Some of you may not get it fully. But then, we say in Tamil, we can sort of stretch our brains a bit to try to grasp it. And I'm sure if you think about it a little bit, you will also get it. And it was a wonderful perspective blessed by our beloved Guru Maharaj when he was discussing this Aghasura Vada. Imagine, why don't you write this down and maybe read it and try to understand this. Bhava is actually imagining the truth as guided by my guru so that I can experience the truth directly in future. And there is a short half sloka which I've talked about in one of our videos. Bhavo hi bhavasya karanam. The bhava becomes future. Bhavasya karanam means it becomes the cause for future. So what I imagine as the truth, as guided by my guru today, becomes the reality for me tomorrow. And that's what is called prema bhakti or fulfilled bhakti.